Okay, good morning. So we're starting now Shin Chof Ches, which is a long and very interesting and relevant siman, Din Chayla b'Shabbos. It deals with the sickness, Refuah on Shabbos. So what I want to do just for a moment is to give a quick overview about the general categories. In short, the way Chazal look at Refuah is that there are 5 categories. The most serious category is a Chayla of Pikuach Nefesh. So his life is in danger, and as we'll see in Sifeis, that it's a mitzvah l'chal lovas Shabbos. You got to break Shabbos for him. So a person, for example, who collapses, he has a heart attack, or a woman in labor, so that person, you've got to do anything to save them. That's the first category. Then you've got sakonas eva, where a limb is in danger, and then a Yisrael can do an Issa Drabanan, he can't do a Deraisa, and an Akum can do an Issa Deraisa. Now, obviously the difficulty is knowing when that's Pikuach Nefesh. Many times that will be a Pikuach Nefesh, so one has to differentiate. Then, the most relevant one perhaps is a Chayla She'ein Bo Sakana. So his life is not in danger, but he's unwell. So what is the Geder of that? So we'll see today, Mr. that one of the Gedarim is Nafal Mishkov, which means he's bedridden, or as we'll see, he should be in bed. So imagine he's got a very heavy flu. So that is the third category, that he should be in bed, or nechlash kol gufa is another way to define it, that his whole body feels very weak. So imagine you've got a very bad flu or something like that. Poskim say that any hospital patient has got the din of a chayla she'ein bo sakana. Now, what is the halacha of a chayla she'ein bo sakana? A Yisrael can do an issa drabanan b'shinui, but the most important one is that an akum can do an issa deraisa. So that means that if a person has got flu, you can tell the non-Jewish person to go to boil a kettle, or in a hospital patient, you can get a non-Jewish nurse to do whatever you need to do, turn the lights on, or whatever it is. That's the third category. Then you've got chayli b'miktas, which is like a headache, a sunburn, a mild toothache, or something like that. And then you've got the lowest one is michush ba'alma, which is a minor headache. And there you'll see, again, today you can't do anything, pretty much. What you can have is Michael Briam. So you've got a mild sore throat, you've got a headache, so you can have a whiskey, but you can't say you're having an Hashem whiskey. You're having a hot water bottle, but that's because it's cold in the winter or something like that. So those are the 5 categories we'll deal with. Pikuach Nefesh, you can do anything, and you've got to do everything. Mitzvah Chalav Shabbos. Sakonas Eva, that Yisrael can do a Drabanan, and Akum can do a Deraisa. Chayla She'ein Bo Sakana is that even an Akum can do a Deraisa for that, and that's an important area of Nafal Mishkov or Nechlash Kol Gufay, or a hospital patient. And then Chayla B'Miksas, where there is like headache or sunburn or mild toothache or mild earache or something like that. And then you've got Michush Ba'alma, which is a very minor headache or something like that. And again, we'll deal with all of that. Okay, so let's go. Sif Aleph. Mi sheyesh le Michush Ba'alma. Someone who's got a mild pain, mild feeling a little bit unwell, for whom is chazik v'hoilech kabari, but he's going around, normal. Normally he's going out and about, he's going to shul. Also lasas lo shum refuah. You can't do any refuah, any medical intervention for him. Even through a non-Jewish person. So that's the famous gezeir shchikas hamonim, that you might come to crush herbs and things like that, and that would be an issa deraisa of toichin. And Chazal famously made a gezeira of refuah because of shchikas hamonim. Fine. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Michush Ba'alma. Says the Mishnah Berurah, De'im Ka'iv Le'tuva V'chola Kol Gufa L'Dezeh. Because if a person was in a lot of pain and his whole body is ill, Oshen Ofan L'Mishkav, or he goes, he's actually bedridden, Av She'ein Bo Sakana Mutar Lasos B'Shvil Refuah She'ein Bo Melacha. Then you're allowed to do some melacha, which is a drabanan, like I said before. Ochahi the siman shin chov zayin sif aleph v'chia gavna. Validei en Yehudi mutar lasos afinu melacha gemura. And through a non-Jewish person, you can do even a deraisa. Because it'll come with sif yud zayin sif lamed zayin ayin sham. Shum refuah for michush ba'alma, you can't do anything. Hainu afilu dvarim she'ein bohem mishum melacha gam kein osa u'chudilel b'sim shin chozayin sif aleph u'lekamen sif lamed vav v'chiyai gavna v'afilu al de'in Yehudi hainu afilu dvarim she'urak mishum shvuas gam kein osa al. You can't even get a guy to do a drabonon for michush ba'alma kiven she'urak michush ba'alma, because after all it is only michush ba'alma. So a couple of interesting things. So what have we seen? We've seen from Aleph that michush ba'alma, which is the fifth category, the lowest level, a very minor headache, you can't do anything for that. You can't get even a non-Jewish person to do even an Issa Drabanan. However, if it's chayla she'em b'sakana, which means nechlash kol gufay or nofel mishkov, then you can get a guy to even do a deraisa, and a yid can do a drabanan. Now, what is the geder of nofel mishkov? So a very important point, number 2. He says, "V'gedesh nofel mishkov bia hagonim nizim karelis sha'af mi she'ein lekol gufa." Even if not the whole body is in pain, it could be a targeted pain. But because, let's say, he's got an earache, a very bad earache, and he can't go about normally, nechshav nofel mishkov. So that's called nofel mishkov. V'haisiv sha'af shemish matzliach lelechas al dei ma'amitz. He's a martyr, so he's going to go around and he's forcing himself to go out and about. Nevertheless, nechshav kamisha nofel mishkov. He's still got a din of nefel mishkov. Kimisha b'matzava harogil hoyashechev. In a regular situation, despite his fortitude, he would be in bed. So even though he's being a martyr and he's not going to bed, still he's got a din of a chodesh em b'sakon, and therefore you can ask a guy to do even a deraisa. And furthermore, if you look at number 4. מי שאין הסבל ממיחוש בלבד, אלא שיש לו מיקסס חיילי, שכוז השולחן ערוך לאל, שמוצא להם בנוחי לעשות עבור הדובר העושה משום שבוס. So there you can tell a non-Jewish person to do Rabbanon. וטעם הדובר, כוז המשום ברא, שכיוון שאין בזה אלא משום שבוס תשבוס, because telling a non-Jewish person to do Rabbanon is a שבוס תשבוס, לא יגוז רחום במקום מיקסס חיילי. So again, so you've already covered 3 of our 5 categories. Michush ba'alma is the lowest one, and that you can't do anything, as we've seen. So that you can't do anything. If it's a chayla she'em b'sakana, which is defined as nofel mishkov, which means you should be bedbound, or is nechlesh kol gufay, or you're in a lot of pain in one area, you've got a bad head, very serious migraine or something like that, then that's you can even get a guy to do deraisa. If it's something in between chayla b'miksas, then you can get the guy to do drabonon, like it's a sort of a toothache or something like that, but it's not quite nofel mishkov or nechlesh kol gufay. Obviously the difficulty here is defining exactly what element fits into which category. Okay, let's carry on. Sif base. Mishi yesh lechayli shel sakana. So now this is pikuach nefesh. So someone who's got a chayli shel sakana, mitzvah lechalal alavis haShabbos. It's a mitzvah to break Shabbos for him. V'hazor is harizem shubach. That whoever is enthusiastic, his zoriz is quick to intervene, to kul hatzolah or something like that, is meshubach. V'hashoyel harizeh shofech tomim. Someone who questions whether or not you can break Shabbos is shofech tomim. So let's take a look. Very interesting Mishnah Berurah. Mitzvah pirush lasos leRefuah. There is a mitzvah to do to get some medical help. V'atam mishum dichsiv v'chai bohem v'lo sheyamas bohem. There's a mitzvah to live and not to die. V'hazoriz ein lekam b'sifiyut beis v'hagosham b'mashenichtav sham b'Mishnah Berurah v'ayin b'yardeh soif siman kuf nun hey deboyin shetei refuah yudua la'anoshim ayapi mumche. It's got to be a refuah which is known and not sort of speculative. If you look at number 5, he says, "U'mashetzorech shetei refuah yudua kos v'shal shuvas maral diskin shezeu rak shetzorech lavar al issa Torah avelav issa shvus muta af letzorech refuah she'en yudua." For a drabonon, you can be over even if it's a bit speculative. That's point number 1. And point number 2, he says, "V'geder refuah yudua kos v'shal shuvas shevet halevi shetzorech she'eh yodeh she'anoshim regilim loichim refuah zu letzorech machla zeis." It's got to be like a standard, tried and tested type of medication. We don't know if it will succeed, but people normally take these things for this illness. Then then you're allowed to take it. Okay, now very famous Mishnah Berurah. He's the person asking questions is Muguna. Pirush mischased is sort of being pious. For Yari lechal Shabbos b'chole kazeh kim alidei meira he's saying, no, we're not sure, let's ask a Rav or something. He's like a murderer. I remember once time being in a shul early in a Shabbos morning, and the Golker was an older man in his 80s, and he was slurring a little bit in Kriyas HaTorah, and he was you can see he wasn't feeling well. He was like started leaning quite slowly. He started slurring a bit, and he carried on, and then he sat down and they got a replacement. So I went over to the Rabbi. I said, "Is anyone called Hatzalah?" So he said, "No." So I said, "Listen, if a man, so I ran around and called Hatzalah, and sure enough, they came and he was having a stroke, and they were deliberating. So if you're shayel, okay, there it wasn't shayel. I guess they didn't realize that it was so serious. But if you're shayel, haru k'shefich domim, shebeoidshu hoylech lishol yechel hashachole yosef yuchel listaken. Because whilst they're deliberating, is this pikuach nefesh, then he can deteriorate and it's very dangerous. You're standing idly by. Now this is a famous Yerushalmi that the Mishnah Berurah brings of Yerushalmi Issa, not Hashayel but Hanishal. What's the difference? The nishal means that the person who is asked is shofich domim, or is harizeh meguna. I mean, pirush mishum shetalmid chacham b'mkoimo heilalidish b'pirkei lekol. It's the Rav's fault. The nishal, the person they go ask, Rabbi, can we call Hatzalah? It's his fault because he should have educated the tzibur that when it comes to pikuach nefesh, you just call. They should know that you don't ask any questions. You call Hatzalah, you run. So if the Chayil himself says, no, don't have to break Shabbos, it's okay, you force him that it's an act of silly piousness. Okay, so that is Pikuach Nefesh. Now, so that's category number 2. Then, Sif Gimel. Kol Makkah Shel Chalal, which means that he's got an internal infection of some sort. Hainu. Dahainu me'ashinaim v'lifnim is from the teeth and inwards. V'shinaim atzim bichlal, and including the teeth. Mechalin lavis Shabbos. Then that's more serious and it can be mechal Shabbos. V'davka sheniskalkal echod me'avarim, where one of the limbs is not functioning. Hapnimium, the internal organs. Machmas makka, because some sort of wound or bua or some sort of infection or blister or something. V'chuyetzi b'zeh. Avol but just feeling unwell is not called a makah. Says the Ramah Miu, someone who's got a toothache, and is in a lot of distress to take it out, you're allowed to get a non-Jewish person to extract the tooth. Says the Mishnah Berurah Me'ashinaim, the gums. Then certainly that categorizes under this sieve. That's considered an internal infection, and you can deal with it. And the teeth themselves, i.e. is quite a painful toothache. And your whole body feels ill. Even though you're not in bed, as opposed to just a very mild toothache. And certainly something called an illness called a sapidna. What does that mean? It's sort of some sort of infection that goes from the tooth all the way down to the stomach. And it's the symptoms are you put anything into your mouth around the teeth, whatever you eat, suddenly there's blood emerging. But that's a bad news. That seems to be a very serious infection, and therefore we're worried it might spread, and who knows where it will go, and therefore you're allowed to mechal Shabbos. For hefresh yesh beinei, and there's a difference between them. The sapidna, this illness of sapidna, even if the chayla or the Refuah say, no, you don't need to mechalel. We say that they're not experts. Chazal say that if your blood is emerging from your teeth, then it's a sakona. But it's just a regular toothache. The choshev kamaka shel cholol, it's called an internal infection. Bestam mechal, and then you're in a stomach situation can be mechalel. But if the doctor or the chayil himself says you don't have to worry about it, then ein mechalin. So that's the difference between just a regular toothache and this sapidna. Okay. The dafka, this is going on. Yeah, dafka sheniskal echod me'evarim. Koya Reisha Amaka Chalash Aguf. That's talking about an internal infection. Okay. And then the Ramah said, Misha Choishish B'Shirav Mitzta'ar Lov Lo Tziyah. Says the Mishabura, Hainu the Koyev Le Tuva. He's got a very painful toothache. Umitzta'ar Kol Kach. And he's in so much pain, that his whole body feels weak. Even though he's not in bed, even though we say a toothache is called an internal infection, you can't get a Yisrael to take out the tooth, because that's not considered a tried and tested refuah. On the contrary, it could deteriorate, it could cause things to become worse. We're allowed, you can take some medication or things like that. And you won't need to take the tooth out. Then the Ramah said, you can tell a non-Jewish person to extract the tooth. Even though he's aiding and abetting, he's opening his mouth and he's helping the guy to take the tooth out. We say that that's not significant. But his helping is not considered really something of substance. Extracting a tooth is a deraisa. The refuah is causing injury in the refuah, and therefore it's a deraisa, and you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so just we'll leave it there, but let's just summarize. What Hilchas Refuah, there are 5 categories. The first category is pikuach nefesh. For pikuach nefesh, you got to do whatever you can. Hazorez harizeh meshubach. The person who acts quickly is meshubach, and hashayel, and someone who is asked is shefech domim, because he shouldn't be questioning it. The life is in danger here, and you got to act quickly. The Yerushalmi says, the Mishnah Berurah says, not hashayel hanishal, the person who was asked is liable, because he should have educated the tzibur not to ask questions about this. Pikuach nefesh, you got to get, or sovik pikuach nefesh, you got to deal with it. So that's the first category. Then you've got sakonas eva. Sakonas eva is Yisrael can do a drabonon, and an akum can do a deraisa. And then you've got the third category of a cholesh she'ein bo sakona, which is defined as either nechlash kol gufoy, your whole body feels ill, you've got like a very bad flu, or nafel mishkov, you're in bed, can't get out of bed, or a hospital patient. A hospital patient has got a din of a cholesh she'ein bo sakona, and there you can tell a guy to do a deraisa, which is very useful to know. Then the next category round is chil b'miksa, so you've got like a headache or something like that, which is quite significant, but it's not yet bed bound. So then you can do. We said a shinui, a shvus to shvus is allowed. We said that you can tell a guy to do a drabonon, and then the final category is michush ba'alma, where it's just a mild headache, a mild toothache, something like that. Where that you can't do anything. You can't even tell a non-Jewish person to do a drabonon. You can have Michael Briam, so you can have a hot bowl of chicken soup, you can have a whiskey or something like that, but you can't say you're doing it in a shame refuah. Seder. Okay.